I was born under a sloping roof. At least, that's the way I remember it. My first memory is of looking up from my crib at the pitched roof of my bedroom ceiling. In a sense, I feel I was born under that roof because I don't remember anything that came before. For me, the slope of the gable roof is a deeply ingrained symbol of comfort and reassurance.
Those are the words and the voice of our client David, reading from the narrative we asked him and his wife Krista to write for us about their ideal house. They were instrumental to the design and to the process of design for us, and so we thought it was appropriate to use them to introduce the project to you. My name is Meg Graham. I'm a partner at Supercool Architecture and Design in Toronto, and this is Connor Wallach, an associate principal at our firm and the project lead on the project. We're going to start with a quick geography lesson. As Canadian architects, we are used to and must design to extremes. We design for the bright sunlight, the deep, dark winter, for bitter cold and blazing heat. Our private residential work is found mostly in southern Ontario, and a lot of it in the area along the Niagara Escarpment. Stretching over 1,000 kilometers, the Niagara Escarpment begins south of Lake Ontario and circumscribes the top of the Great Lakes Basin, running from New York through Ontario, Michigan, and Wisconsin. It's more than 450 million years old, and it's the most prominent topographical feature of southern Ontario. It's a magnificent landform. It's essentially a long cliff. Designated as a UNESCO World Biosphere Reserve, it hosts the oldest forest ecosystem and trees in eastern North America, and is one of the last remaining bands of continuous forest cover in southern Ontario. As such, it is a vital habitat for many animal species, including some at risk. The elevational difference between the highest and lowest points of the Ontario portion of the escarpment is 1,100 feet, which is 54 feet taller than the Chrysler Building in New York. Our building site is adjacent to the Niagara Escarpment with its own mini ridge that runs through it. These lands have long been used for agriculture, first by the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Attawandaron indigenous peoples long before the European settlers arrived. It is to this day still used for agricultural purposes, but that's diminishing as farms like this, which is relatively small, are no longer viable as family farms. Our clients had a deep affection for this area and region when they found the property. For years prior to building, they walked the site and developed a forest management plan for it, bringing it to greater health from a natural ecosystem perspective. The property's mini ridge can be seen here, that slight gentle upward curvature in the land. And what happens is the arable land on the property rises up to that and then falls back down again to make a little mini dip after it before we hit the forest. That ridge screens off the main access road, the view of it from that back part of the site. We surveyed the land with our clients during different seasons. Here we are in winter with our dog Nero. And this is the land as the winter turns to spring. Having walked the property now in several seasons, we were confident we had a good grasp of it. And we could start imagining an architecture led by the land. With David's words in our head, we began with the roof. We used the roof as a primary architectural form, using the heaviness of it to ground the house to the earth, but what will sound paradoxical, the lightness of it from the inside to bring the sky into the design.
And what about the roof? We began with the pure gable form and the idea that we would carve into the public spaces, the living room, dining room, kitchen, and outdoor screened-in porch. We carved openings to connect the sky inward, and we sculpted volumes playing with the scale of the ceiling plane, transitioning from flat ceilings to vaulted ceilings, reaching back upward to the sky. We sculpted various skylight apertures, positioning on both the east and west sides of the ridgeline to capture light at different times of day. We adapted them to rooms. The most distinguished aperture, an open-air cleft, brings the sky, air, and water into an enclosed garden adjacent to the main bedroom and ensuite. The secret garden, our interpretation of another client request, is entirely private space, and the aperture provides an ever-changing view of the sky. Here's the aperture in section. After conversations with our clients, we decided to follow the property's lead and site the house parallel to and just beyond and below the top of the soft ridge line, embedding the home directly into the landscape. This siting creates privacy from the main road while bringing the west side into direct contact with the pine forest, composing a tranquil refuge around a theater for the wildlife outdoors. The driveway navigates its way around the ridge to the home. In early schematic studies, we worked on the rhythm and function of the apertures in relation to the layout and program, adding the garden space to create separation from the garage and workshop. With the north-south orientation, we are interested in how sculpting and opening the roof created a sundial effect that can be observed throughout the day. Morning sunlight filtering through one set of skylights, reflecting off the wall and ceiling planes, and evening light pouring in through others. As the light comes through the roof, the living spaces are animated by the brush strokes of the sun, a reminder of nature and time, and the sunbeams dance from one surface to the next over hours or changing seasons. With the living spaces focused toward the forest, an accordion window system was designed to disappear, allowing the rhythms of the nature into the home. As the walls open up, the interior space extends onto the porch, creating a mid-door space where one can be inside and outside at the same time, and the forest becomes as much a part of the home as the walls themselves.
I prefer refined to rustic. I prefer monochromatic to vibrant. I prefer matte to gloss. I prefer light woods to dark woods. I prefer standing seam to shingles. I'd love to blur the distinction between inside and outside. I'd love to have light make impressions inside the house. I'd love to have a fireplace that's a central feature.
There's no greater pleasure at this point in my career than to bring a client's relationship to life and land to realization, which in this case was simply and purely about elevating the everyday. As I mentioned, ours is a climate of extremes. Over the year, temperatures can vary by 60 degrees centigrade, which is 110 degrees Fahrenheit for the Americans, going from minus 30 degrees in the winter to over 30 degrees in the summer. And precipitation comes in the form of both rain and snow. The average snowfall in this part of the world is about 9 feet, which comes to the underside of the roof here. Not all at once, though, mind you. Liminal spaces like the mid-door space Connor described are instrumental to living in close proximity with nature. Our clients weren't looking for a water view, a hilltop perch, or a grand vista. What they wanted more than anything was privacy, trees, and the chance to create a home that felt like it talked to the forest. Part of the desired calm came from our client's preference for a monochromatic palette and natural materials. We drew the outside in, both literally and figuratively. The house is clad in pine, which is what we have in the forest behind us. The same gray that coats that exterior pine comes in and runs through the interior as well. It wasn't about fashion, it was about a continuity for the eyes and senses, both in texture and in color. In the winter, the wood-burning fireplace becomes a cozy heart of the home, fueled by logs cut from the property. The primary heat source in the house is a cold climate air-to-air heat pump, supplemented by radiant heat in the floor. There's a substantial amount, well beyond code, of insulation in the walls and the roof. So taken together, these two things mean it's a house that is both spare in its ecological footprint and also in its energy use. We're on a clean grid in Ontario, and so the air-to-air electric heat pump was a substantial piece of that puzzle. Our clients have shared that their favorite spaces in the home reflect a balance of practicality and pleasure, and have afforded them a rare kind of luxury, not the grandeur of sweeping vistas, but the deep calm of living closely with nature. Careful consideration of light and views makes sure the interior feels alive. The home has a relationship not just to the horizontal, but to the vertical in the sky above, that paradoxical roof that is at once heavy and light. The primary aperture carved out of the roof above the garden opens to the sky. This is where the land literally comes into the house and the light spills out onto the land. Every decision, from the home's placement against the woods to the merging of inside and out, honors the land. And yes, winter. The overhang allows light to penetrate even the winter months when the altitude of the sun is as low as 22 degrees. Wan light reflects off the snow and casts a different kind of light. Thin wood slats conceal the garden, creating patterned and filtered light. In deference to the landscape and season, the house blends with the winter snow and what can be a very leaden sky. Walking down the driveway, looking back over our shoulder, the front facade disappears as the ridge rises and the driveway drops in elevation to meet the road. Returning to where we started, it was our goal and that of our client to create a sublime architecture, one that was led by the land. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any thoughts, reflections?
I have just a little technical question.
Sure.
Inside the white walls, what material are they?
So the vast majority of it is drywall, and occasionally there's some plaster on top.
Yeah, I have a question as well, because you have very linear composition of the function, like arriving from north, like with access of north-south. So basically every day you walk south to north, north to south.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
it's like passing to the several different kind of layer of the space. Then you're having the left side, the west side with like a garden, like more open. The east side is more closed space.
Yeah.
But do you have any kind of sequential design, kind of different space quality on this axis?
That's a very insightful question because we didn't show you a plan. And so you've got it exactly. The north to south is the axis, and there's windows on either end. So you're always seeing the field or the trees beyond, and then it's like an enfilade of spaces that are off of that one long linear path, and all of them, with the exception of one or two minor spaces, face that forest. And so are they designed together? In a way, because of the material continuity, but each one of them is a room unto itself that faces and has the privacy of facing the forest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter?
Yeah, may I say, can you hear? May I say this is an impeccable presentation. I think that's a point to make generally, to everybody, but that sometimes presentations are very obscure or overblown. I think it goes with the nature of the architecture, so it's very clear. But of course, the basic proposition is one that we know well, in a way.
Yep.
The long, low house and the glass facade and the interaction with nature, which is one of the old modernist things. But I think it's then the quality of your building is almost analogous to tailoring. And I think the one that really interests me, of course, is the aperture in. And I sometimes in the presentation, one slightly lost what you get out of it. Yes, the point about the sky and the light and so on is well made, etc. And I think the analogy also between this riding of the ridge, this endless ridge, and then you're riding it too, that's fine. The aperture thing is the big move.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good move, but I think even your impeccable though it was, your presentation or your tertiary interpretation of the move didn't quite show as much as I was waiting to see this magic world inside that aperture area. And I mean, I'm not supposed to criticize. It's
a point well taken.
Observation rather than a critique.
Yeah, it's a point well taken. And I think in retrospect, although it's so hard to show the spatial qualities of architecture through photos, it might have been better served had we brought a video, not of the whole thing necessarily, but something that would allow you to do that movement that you just described through the house and feel the opening and closing through the roof and through the windows to the outside.
I wonder, though, if there were, even at the level of, say, furnishing, a ricochet from that. Once you have this lit patch, and, light is scarce in Canada, which has to be remembered, that once you have this special patch, is there something else that you or the owner can do with it? Maybe it's the owner who needs to.
No, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking something along the same line. I mean, it's great to see that you get on so well with your client. and that you want to, come to a presentation like this and still bring the voice of the client. But throughout, I was sort of wondering where there were kind of instances where you differed from the client, because the project is very affirmative of the client, and somehow when he says he doesn't want shingles and he wants standing seam, and you kind of start wondering, what is it that you wanted, and where was it that you tried to convince him of something different? That would be lovely to hear you speak about that relationship.
I was speaking with someone just about this last night, but the project, our clients came to us initially asking for a phased project with the main cottage and then a garage and workspace to be part of phase 2. And when we started studying the site and thinking about how we could compose this project, we asked them to consider it in all as one phase, with this, essentially this aperture is that link between the two phases of the project. They immediately bought into this idea, and that in a way kind of became one of the main thesis of the project.
Okay.
I mean, one other way I think to explain or to answer that question, Motion, is to say that they came to us. It was one of those perfect marriage of taste and instinct, I think, and they were so interested in the process of design and of coming along with us on that process of design that it was that, and that's and then you get this result of this house that holds itself together so beautifully, because it was one that they trusted the process.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.